Throughout the history of archaeology, researchers have made many sensational discoveries. Thanks to these, we have learned many new and surprising facts about antiquity. But just imagine how many artifacts still remain hidden from our eyes. In this video, I invite you to get acquainted with the most shocking finds of researchers that can change the conventional view of human history. Enjoy watching. In the Altai Krai of Russia, there is one of the most significant archaeological landmarks in human history, Denisova Cave. Records of the cave appeared in 19th century publications, but it was not of interest to science at that time. The first archaeological excavations in this area began in 1982. 2 years later, researchers discovered 2 teeth that did not belong to Homo sapiens. After studying them, it became clear that the first tooth belonged to an ungulate animal, and the second to a 7-year-old child. Since then, during the excavation process, archaeologists have identified 22 cultural layers belonging to different eras and collected over 80,000 exhibits, including animal remains, hunting weapons, household items, and even jewelry, such as a bracelet made of green chloride dating back 40,000 years. However, the most important discovery was made in 2008 when a fragment of a human finger bone was found in the cave. Analysis of this fragment revealed that it was the last phalanx of the little finger of a 9-year-old girl who belonged to an unknown type of human, representing a separate branch in the evolution of mankind. It was previously thought that among the ancestors of intelligent humans, there were only 2 types, Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons. Neanderthals died out about 40,000 years ago, and Cro-Magnons laid the foundations of modern civilization. However, the remains found did not belong to either of these 2 types. Scientists named this new human species Denisovans. According to genetic analysis, they were close to Neanderthals, but diverged into different branches of evolution about 64,000 years ago. The discovery of the remains of this new human species in Denisova Cave was a very important discovery for science, as it completely changed our understanding of human evolution. The Ulfberht swords are a group of medieval swords found at different times throughout Europe. To date, about 170 of these swords have been identified. All of them were produced between the 9th and 11th centuries. A distinctive feature of these weapons is the identical inscription on the blades, Ulfberht. This word was likely the name of a sort of brand used by the manufacturers who produced these swords over several centuries. The Ulfberht swords represent a transitional link between Viking swords and knightly swords. It is remarkable that the technology used to make these weapons was significantly different from the rest of European production and seemed ahead of its time. From the 9th to the 11th century, swords in Europe were predominantly made by forge welding small pieces of steel together. The Ulfberht swords were made from crucible steel with a high carbon content, which gave them incredible strength. To this day, it remains a mystery how the craftsmen who created these swords were aware of the technology for producing high-strength steel, as well as various methods of forge welding, which only appeared in Europe in the 14th century. In Indonesia, near the Javanese village of Karyamukti, lies the unique megalithic site of Gunung Padang. Gunung Padang consists of 5 man-made terraces, stone sarcophagi, sculptures, and burial urns. This site has been considered sacred by the local population since ancient times. Europeans first learned of its existence in the late 19th century, but archaeological excavations in the area only began in the 1980s. During the investigation of Gunung Padang, archaeologists discovered that the complex consists of 5 terraces, each narrowing towards the top of the structure, and it contains underground chambers. Initially, it was believed that Gunung Padang was built on a natural hill, but recent studies have shown that what was thought to be a natural elevation was actually constructed by humans. In other words, this complex was a pyramid. Naturally, archaeologists were keen to determine the age of the structure. The results of radiocarbon dating shocked the scientific community, revealing that the lower layer of the Indonesian pyramid was built more than 16,000 years ago. skeptics consider these results incorrect, continuing to claim that the age of Gunung Padang cannot exceed 4,000 years. This is not surprising, as if the pyramid was built 16,000 years ago, it implies that a highly advanced civilization existed in what is now Indonesia, previously unknown to history. The English king from the House of York, Richard III, died in 1485 during the Battle of Bosworth. For more than 500 years, his remains were undiscovered, but thanks to the efforts of archaeologists from the University of Leicester, his burial site was finally located. In September 2012, human remains were discovered in a car park in Leicester. According to historical archives, this was the resting place of Richard III, so the found skeleton was sent for further investigation. Results of radiocarbon analysis, DNA analysis, and bone examination showed that the remains belonged to a man who died in the late 15th century, at about 35 years of age. The English king indeed died in 1485 at 32 years old. The DNA of the found remains matched that of Richard III's maternal line descendants. The skeleton also showed multiple injuries inflicted by swords, daggers, and halberds, consistent with the wounds the king received during the Battle of Bosworth. These correlations were sufficient for scientists to officially declare that they had finally found the remains of the English king, Richard III. In 1961, during excavations in the ancient Romanian city of Alba Iulia, archaeologists discovered 3 clay tablets with mysterious pictograms. This artifact was named after the settlement of Tartaria, near which it was found. 2 tablets are rectangular, one of which has a round hole. The 3rd tablet is disc-shaped and also features a hole. On each of them, pictograms are found on one side. The artifact was thoroughly studied by Maria Gimbutas, a researcher of culture and religion in pre-Indo-European Europe. She believed that these pictograms represent one of the oldest forms of writing in Europe, dating back to the 6th millennium BCE. However, most historians do not support this hypothesis, considering the images on the tablets to have ritual cult significance. Moreover, some skeptics claim that the tablets are forgeries, as the symbols bear similarities to reproductions of Sumerian writing. The Tartaria tablets have sparked much debate among researchers and scientists, as the purpose and meaning of the inscribed symbols remain unknown to this day. The most famous attraction of Easter Island is the Moai statues. However, the island is also known for its mysterious Rongorongo tablets. The tablets with hieroglyphs in the Rongorongo language were first discovered by missionary Eugene A. Raud in 1864. He decided that the unknown symbols were a ritual invocation preventing people from reaching paradise and ordered them to be burned. For this reason, just over a dozen of these tablets have survived to this day. The inscriptions contain 14,083 characters in 314 lines. Despite A. Raud's negative attitude towards the indigenous writing, many researchers and scientists have been interested in deciphering the texts on the tablets. However, doing so has not yet been possible. It was previously believed that the Rongorongo language appeared among the Rapa Nui people, residents of Easter Island, in the late 1770s when Europeans arrived on their lands. However, radiocarbon dating of the tablets conducted in 2024 showed that the tablets date back to the 16th century, meaning that the Rapa Nui created their language even before encountering European literacy. Unfortunately, after most of the indigenous people were displaced from the island, the Rongorongo language was forgotten. For this reason, there are no longer people on our planet who can decipher the texts of the tablets that once hung almost over every Rapa Nui home. In 1876, in the Scottish county of West Dunbartonshire near Cochno Farm, Reverend James Harvey discovered an unusual stone slab. It measured 12.8 meters in length and 7.9 meters in width. The slab also featured about 90 petroglyphs in the form of circles and spirals. Archaeologists were immediately interested in this remarkable find. To better study the petroglyphs, they applied white paint to them. However, the meaning of the images has not been deciphered to this day. Some petroglyph experts have suggested that the slab might have been a sort of star map, as the spirals and circles resembled stars. Other scientists believe that the stone slab could have been used for performing religious rituals, but all these assumptions are speculative, and the true meaning of the petroglyphs remains unknown. The unusual artifact attracted the attention of not only archaeologists, but also tourists, which led to the decision in 1965 to bury the slab underground. Scientists returned to the study of the find only recently, in 2015. A year later, specialists began creating a three-dimensional model of the slab for easier study of the object. Despite long-standing research on the Cochno Stone, scientists only know that the petroglyphs were created about 5,000 years ago. Who created them and for what purposes remains a mystery. The mysterious object found at a depth of 87 meters in the Baltic Sea has been named the Baltic anomaly. It was first discovered in 2010 by the Swedish Ocean X team, which specializes in searching for sunken treasures. The object was found accidentally while the Ocean X specialists were searching for a sunken ship. They were conducting a sonar survey of the bottom of the Bothnian Bay in the Baltic Sea when they captured the image of the unusual object. The Baltic anomaly looked very strange, leading to numerous speculations about its nature. Among the hypotheses were theories about a sunken alien spacecraft and even a German secret submarine. Scientists rushed to end the disputes about the mysterious origin of the Baltic anomaly and declared that the object was created by nature, not by aliens. According to geologists, the Baltic anomaly is formed from basalt rock that moved along with a glacier millions of years ago. The glacier melted, and the volcanic rock with a bizarre shape ended up at the bottom of the Bothnian Bay. In the Walmadeni area located in Western Australia, archaeologists discovered thousands of dinosaur footprints, about 130 million years old. However, they can only study them during low tides, as they remain submerged underwater at other times. In 2017, after a significant low tide, paleontologists from Queensland University made a sensational discovery. They found the largest dinosaur footprint ever recorded. The footprint measures 1.75 meters in length and is at least 90 million years old. According to scientists, the footprint was left by an ancient reptile belonging to the sauropods. This group includes several species of four-legged herbivorous dinosaurs. Characteristic features of sauropods included a long neck and tail, a small head, and massive body sizes. Some species could weigh over 60 tons, making sauropods the largest animals in Earth's history. These dinosaurs lived on all continents, including Antarctica, and fed solely on plant material. Sauropods, like many other dinosaurs, perished during the mass extinction over 66 million years ago. In northern Spain, near the town of Santander, lies the remarkable cave known as Altamira. Altamira is famous for its rock paintings, which were created from 35,000 to 13,000 years BCE. The cave was first discovered in 1879 and has since been a subject of study by paleontologists. The cave paintings belong to various cultures of primitive art, including the Magdalenian, Solutrean, and Gravettian. Thus, experts concluded that Altamira was an inhabited cave for over 22,000 years. People would likely have continued to live there for a long time, but around 13,000 years BCE, a major landslide occurred in the area, blocking the entrance to the cave. Most of the paintings in Altamira are polychromatic, realistic images of animals and anthropomorphs. However, among the drawings, there are also abstract objects and various patterns. The polychromatic ceiling of the cave looks so impressive that it is often referred to as the Sistine Chapel of primitive art. Altamira Cave is a unique archaeological monument, the discovery of which has provided valuable information about the art and culture of primitive people. It has long been believed that Christopher Columbus was the discoverer of America. However, archaeological finds suggest that this is another historical misconception. In the United States, in various states, many Roman coins have been found. For example, in the state of Maine, Roman bronze coins dating to the reign of Emperor Severus Alexander, who was killed in 235 AD, were found. In Massachusetts, Roman coins depicting the Roman ruler Septimius Severus, who ruled from 193 to 211 AD, have also been found. Besides coins, other artifacts indicating that the ancient Romans might have traded with the indigenous people of America have been found, such as amphorae, dating back to the 3rd century AD. This suggested that Romans might have crossed the ocean in the early centuries AD. But is this possible? Scholars are divided on this matter. Some believe that the Romans indeed could have sailed across the ocean on their sailing ships, while other historians consider this impossible. Terry Herbert, a resident of Lichfield in Staffordshire, England, has been a treasure hunter for 18 years. In the summer of 2009, he asked permission from an acquaintance to explore his fields using a metal detector. After a week of searching, he made a discovery that shocked not only himself, but all of England. Herbert found the largest Anglo-Saxon hoard ever discovered. Underground, about 1,500 different artifacts were hidden, including weapons, utensils, jewelry, and religious items. Most items date back to the 7th century AD. The total value of this find is estimated at 3.3 million British pounds. Despite nearly 15 years since the discovery, archaeologists and historians still cannot answer who owned all these items. According to one theory, they could have belonged to Penda, the last pagan warrior king, who ruled Mercia from 622 to 655. It is also unknown for what purpose this wealth was hidden underground. In the early 1960s, 8 kilometers from the Turkish city of Şanlıurfa, on the hill of Göbekli Tepe, archaeologists discovered the ruins of an ancient structure. However, at that time, they did not consider the find important enough to conduct further research. In 1994, archaeologists from the Istanbul branch of the German Archaeological Institute decided to resume excavations at Göbekli Tepe. The expedition leader, Klaus Schmidt, after examining the ruins, realized that the megaliths were of very ancient origin, and that the research of these ruins would lead to a sensational discovery. It later became clear that Schmidt was right. The structure on the hill of Göbekli Tepe was built over 11,000 years ago, at a time when nomadic hunter-gatherers roamed our planet. While archaeologists had discovered earlier human constructions among megalithic structures, Göbekli Tepe is the oldest. For instance, the famous British Stonehenge is almost half as old as Göbekli Tepe. So, what was the purpose of this structure in southeastern Anatolia? Historians suggest that Göbekli Tepe was a temple complex. Thousands of residents from settlements located within a radius of about 200 kilometers came there initially to build and later to perform rituals. Likely, these sanctuaries were connected to a cult of the dead. The temple's massive megaliths bear numerous depictions of snakes, which in ancient tribes were associated with the underworld. Additionally, during the excavations, archaeologists found several ancient skulls and animal bones, which could also indicate a religious cult. Although the purpose of the Göbekli Tepe structure is now considered known, the mystery remains how 11,000 years ago, ancient hunter-gatherers managed to build such a large temple complex from gigantic stones, some of which could weigh up to 12,000 tons. In 1986, Japanese diver Kihachiro Aratake decided to watch predatory fish near the southern coast of Yonaguni Island. However, instead of fish, he discovered an unusual object covered in corals at a depth of about 30 meters. Professor Masaki Kimura, a marine geologist and seismologist, became interested in the diver's discovery. Over the next 20 years, he conducted various studies on this object. Kimura was convinced that the monument was a man-made structure, specifically a pyramid, located on an ancient sunken continent. To prove his theory, the professor and his team made numerous dives. During these investigations, he discovered several features of the monument, such as tool marks, staircases, gates, and even sculptures and bas-reliefs. Masaki Kimura believes that about 10,000 years ago, what is now Yonaguni Island was part of an ancient continent. Due to a severe natural cataclysm, the continent broke into many separate islands, and most of it, including the pyramid, was submerged. Despite all the evidence presented by the professor, most geologists continue to consider the Yonaguni monument a natural formation. However, tourists still call this place the Japanese Atlantis, and specifically visit Yonaguni Island to admire the submerged ancient structure. In 1936, the renowned Austrian archaeologist Wilhelm König discovered an unusual vessel in an Iraqi museum, which was more than 3,700 years old. The pot attracted the archaeologist's attention due to its small size, only 13 centimeters in height. Furthermore, he was curious about why the vessel's neck was sealed with a bitumen stopper. To study the object in more detail, König carefully cut it open. Inside the pot was a copper cylinder, the bottom of which was sealed with bitumen. An iron rod was inserted into the cylinder, its end slightly not reaching the bottom of the cylinder. After examining the setup, the archaeologist came to a peculiar conclusion. He was holding a primitive electric generator in his hands. You might be surprised to learn this, but experiments by scientists from the University of North Carolina confirmed that such a construction, using wine vinegar as the electrolyte, could generate an electric charge of 0.5 volts. Despite the successful experimental results, the hypothesis that the pot could have been a primitive battery has faced criticism. However, skeptics' claims had no substantial evidence, and the artifact could indeed have been used as a primitive prototype of modern batteries. Archaeologists have been excavating in Egypt for a very long time, but many secrets of this ancient civilization remain hidden from our eyes, and scientists still have discoveries to make. The Pyramid of Khufu, located on the Giza Plateau, is the largest among all Egyptian pyramids. It is about 4,500 years old. It might seem that this pyramid has long been studied, but recent research by archaeologists has proven otherwise. In 2017, participants of the Scan Pyramids project began scanning the Pyramid of Khufu using muon tomography. This technology allows for data on the internal structure of the object under study. Researchers were able to determine that inside the pyramid, 50 meters above the floor of the Queen's chamber, there is a space previously unknown. Undoubtedly, such a discovery required further study, as at that time the exact dimensions of this chamber were unknown. In 2023, participants of the same project began the next phase of research. Using a long endoscope, they determined that the length of the room is 9 meters and the width is 2 meters. It is likely that this room was sealed during the construction of the pyramid, that is, 4,500 years ago. Despite the data obtained, the purpose of this chamber remains unknown. Some Egyptologists believe that this space was deliberately left by the builders to reduce the load on the ceiling of the Grand Gallery. However, other scientists think that the void is too large for these purposes and do not rule out the possibility that inside this chamber might be the body of Pharaoh Khufu, which remains unfound. One of the greatest mysteries in history is the location of the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred relic of 3 religions: Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Many researchers have tried to find the artifact, but so far, no one has succeeded. According to the Old Testament, the Ark of the Covenant is a gold-covered wooden chest adorned with figures of cherubim. Inside it were stored the tablets of the 10 Commandments, the sacred scriptures, Aaron's budded rod, and a pot of manna, artifacts that are direct evidence of God's interaction with people. The sacred chest was created by the prophet Moses and accompanied the Jews on their long journey. Initially, it was kept in a portable sanctuary, and then in the Holy of Holies of the Jerusalem Temple. The last mention of this relic dates back to 622 BC. Since then, its fate remains unknown. Historians have several theories about where the Ark of the Covenant might have disappeared to. According to one, the relic may be hidden under the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, but this hypothesis cannot be tested because the area is home to Muslim holy sites. The second theory suggests that the Ark might be kept in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Ethiopia. This is indicated by a legend from the Kebra Nagast, which stated that the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba secretly sent the relic to Ethiopia. Unfortunately, it is impossible to verify the truth of these hypotheses, so the location of the Ark remains a mystery. During drilling operations in South Africa, workers discovered an incredible find: an ancient drilling tool resembling modern tools. This massive round object was entirely surrounded by spikes and was likely used for heavy drilling. But who was the creator of this tool? Experts suggest that it was made about 3,000 years ago by an unknown advanced civilization. Of course, this may seem far-fetched, but there have been many such unbelievable discoveries in the history of archaeology. Currently, scientists cannot explain the origin of this tool or accurately estimate its age. However, as soon as the object is thoroughly studied, we will be able to learn much more about it. Cleopatra was the last queen of Hellenistic Egypt from the Ptolemaic dynasty. Although Cleopatra was not Egyptian, she was deeply in love with the culture of her people. She became the only one of her dynasty to learn the Egyptian language and preferred to wear the traditional attire of Egyptian rulers. Cleopatra is remembered as a smart, judicious, and passionate woman. She captivated thousands of men, but swore her love to only one: Roman general Mark Antony. It is believed that after the death of her beloved fearing capture by Octavian, Cleopatra took her own life. To this day, the tombs of Cleopatra and Mark Antony have not been found, so many researchers continue their search. Dominican archaeologist Kathleen Martinez has been searching for the Queen's tomb for over 10 years. In 2020, during excavations at the ancient temple of Taposiris Magna, her team discovered a tunnel dubbed a geometric marvel. The tunnel is located 13 meters underground and extends for about 1,400 meters. Martinez suggests that this underground passage could lead to the tombs of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, as it is believed that the Queen chose the Temple of Osiris as her burial site. To date, archaeologists have explored more than half of the tunnel, and perhaps soon we will learn where the great Egyptian queen rests. The Shroud of Turin is a valuable Christian artifact. It is believed to be the linen cloth, measuring 437 by 111 centimeters, in which the body of Jesus Christ was wrapped after his crucifixion. However, many skeptics are convinced that the shroud is actually a forgery made in the 13th century. The debate over the artifact's authenticity has been ongoing for a very long time. Scientists present research results showing that the linen cloth was manufactured much later than the year of Christ's crucifixion. But religious figures continue to believe in the artifact's sanctity. The linen cloth indeed bears the imprint of the head, hands, and feet of a man resembling Jesus Christ. According to tradition, after Christ's death, the burial shroud was lost. But in the 14th century, it was brought to France by a crusader whose name remains unknown. Shortly afterward, the artifact was handed over to the church in the city of Lirey. From that moment, thousands of pilgrims began to flock to the city to see the shroud. In 1452, Duke Louis I of Savoy purchased the shroud and moved it to the city of Chambéry, and in 1578, the artifact arrived at the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, northern Italy. This is where the shroud got its name. The first disputes about the authenticity of the artifact arose after it was determined that the imprint on the linen cloth was a negative. This strange phenomenon is explained by some as an effect of the cloth being overexposed, but it could also indicate that the shroud is a forgery, made using a primitive camera. In favor of the artifact's authenticity were the findings of scientists from the Los Alamos National Laboratory, which showed a three-dimensional image of a man wrapped in the shroud. However, this did not confirm that this man was indeed Christ. Scientists also tried to determine the age of the artifact, but this proved not so straightforward because the shroud had stains from a fire that occurred in 1532. When more modern dating methods became available, the cathedral officials refused to provide the artifact for further research. Therefore, the authenticity of the Shroud of Turin remains a mystery. In 1900, near the Greek island of Antikythera, an ancient sunken ship was discovered at the bottom of the Ionian Sea. A year later, along with many artifacts, an unusual stone with gears was retrieved from its wreckage. Scientists were immediately intrigued by this strange object and concluded that it was an ancient mechanism, possibly an astrolabe. For a long time, the purpose of the artifact remained unknown, and it continued to be stored in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. In 1951, the study was taken up by the English historian Derek J. de Sola Price. Using X-ray analysis, he established that the mechanism was used as a calendar and could also track the positions of the sun, moon, and other planets. Price concluded that this ancient device was a kind of computing technology from the 2nd century BCE. Many scientists attempted to reconstruct this artifact, but real progress has only been achieved recently. This is primarily because specialists now have not just one, but 30 fragments of this device, found by researchers over time. In 2021, a team of scientists led by Professor Frizz managed to perform complex calculations and create a model of the complete Antikythera mechanism. It turns out that the mechanism consisted of 37 gears housed in a small wooden box. The front and back of the box featured dials, limbs, concentric rings, and pointers. On the side of the box, there was a handle used to operate the mechanism, along with instructions for using the device. This mechanism allowed ancient scientists to monitor the current positions of Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, and Venus, and to predict their future positions. Additionally, it could forecast lunar and solar eclipses, covering a total of 42 astronomical events. The Antikythera mechanism can indeed be called a unique invention of antiquity, but unfortunately, the identity of its creator remains unknown. That's all for me. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon. Your activity is the best reward for me. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Bye.